detailed, precise, and informed.
That's DPI.
Welcome back, everybody, to That's DPI. I'm Zach, and that is Tyler over there. And this is our final week of draft coverage. We have 2 more divisions left before we have covered every team in the NFL. And we've got the NFC West and the AFC East on tap for you today. And then, of course, next week, the Wednesday before the draft, we will be doing our big live stream where we're doing a full first-round mock of the entire NFL. We will be doing 7-round mocks where we control our respective teams, me, the Lions, Tyler, the Chiefs. And then the day after that, the night of the first round, we will be covering Draft Fest for Kansas City Chiefs season ticket holders. So I don't think any content will come out that evening, but we will be posting in the coming days about that experience. So tons of great draft content coming up. But let's talk about the now, because we also have a ref call of the week after our draft coverage. Tyler, what might that be?
We are going to break down the tuck rule of the early 2000s because it really hasn't came into play recently, and there is a surprising reason for that. So make sure you are watching for that, along with liking and subscribing for more ref breakdowns. Right now, we are in the middle of our series of calls that changed the rule book, and the tuck rule is on the docket for today.
But Tyler, we have 1 week, 2 divisions left of draft coverage. How about a little cheers to draft coverage for the end of the year? Excellent. Let's get right into it. Now that I've had some Heaven Hill bourbon, would love a sponsor. Tyler's always looking for a little sponsor, but
Michelob Ultra, that's my
that would be a better sponsor. But let's get right into the AFC East, and we can start with the first pick. The second pick of the draft and the first in the order for those teams, and that is the New York Jets. Not only do they have the number 2 overall pick in this year's draft, but they have the 16th overall pick as well. So tons of opportunity for the New York Jets due to some trades they've made and due to how bad they were last year. But I'm going to pass it to Tyler. Who do you think they'll go at both of these spots? Or maybe we can talk 2 and then 16.
Yeah, so the Jets being on the clock is really where the draft begins. Fernando Mendoza is going number 1. That's a given. So the draft really starts with this pick. And I've got Arvell Reese, the linebacker out of Ohio State. This is an interesting draft because that's not exactly the most picked person. There are mocks out there that have them going differently. But myself and a good amount do have Arvell Reese, that linebacker, that stellar linebacker out of Ohio State.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. I also have Arvell Reese. I think it is a possibility, and it's kind of like flip-flopped in the last couple of weeks between David Bailey and between Arvell Reese. But my thing with Arvell Reese is I think he has more positional versatility and higher ceiling than David Bailey. I think David Bailey is the best edge in the class, and he's going to be an all-pro player. And we're going to talk about him later in this video. But I do think that Arvell Reese gets the edge slightly because of who the head coach of the Jets is, and that's Aaron Glenn, a defensive mastermind who wants to collect chess pieces that he can unleash on the opponent. Didn't do very well at that last year, but I think Arvell Reese will be a step in the right direction. But the Jets do have another pick, right? One that's...
Yes, they've got pick 16. Do you want to tell me, stuttering a lot here in this first pick, who do you have the Jets picking for pick 16? Gotcha. We agree on Arvell Reese at 2.
Yeah, Tyler, that's why we don't drink when we record. That's your stuttering. So
I guess so. 1 sip and we're gone, I guess.
So for 16, I labored over 2 guys, and they both play the same position. And I think it's a huge position of need for the Jets. One of these players has a higher ceiling, but very big injury concerns. And the other one I think is a safer pick, but probably doesn't offer the insane upside of the other. And those 2 players are Jordan Tyson and Omar Cooper Jr., wide receivers that are projected to go somewhere in and around the first round of this year's draft. Jordan Tyson being the guy with the injury concerns, but the uber high ceiling, and Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana being a guy that I think that you could really build around and maybe would be a great complementary option early in his career to a guy like Garrett Wilson. Ultimately, I lean Omar Cooper Jr. I don't know. I just don't think the Jets can afford an injury-prone wide receiver at this point in Aaron Glenn's hot seat. I mean, his seat is a hot tub at this point. So he just needs to be careful to not draft a player that could get hurt in training camp and never see the field and he gets fired. I think that would be scary. But I'm curious to see what you have.
I am a huge fan of Omar Cooper Jr. I think he's one of the more exciting wide receivers out of this draft class after you get past where is he? After you get past Carnell Tate. Yes. After you get past him, I do like Omar Cooper Jr. as one of the best wide receivers. CBS also mocks Denzel Boston, the wide receiver out of Washington, to New York. I disagree with those takes, though. I've got them continuing with defense. They've got a defensive-minded head coach. The Jets' defense was absolutely atrocious last year. So I've actually got them going Auburn edge rusher Keldrick Falk for this. I don't have them taking an offensive player in this first round.
Fascinating. I guess I can't really see that because they're already going pass rusher with their first pick with Reese or Bailey, right? I feel like they have to address corner or receiver with their next pick. And then probably with pick 33, they have to address the position they don't address at 16.
Yeah, and that's where I see them start to go of those wide receivers. I think there's a lot of wide receivers that can fall to that early second round, and that's where I see them picking up their receiver. I just think Aaron Glenn needs to figure out what's going on in the defense. I see Arvell Reese being, yes, a pass rusher, but also that versatile linebacker that can do a lot of different things. And then they go get their pure pass rusher with that edge. That's kind of where I've seen some notes go as to what the Jets could be doing, especially because I saw this stat, and it is true. We have had Rory McIlroy win 2 Masters championships in between the time the Jets had their last interception.
Yeah, that's
and
brutal.
The way to get interceptions is to pressure the quarterback and have good corners, of course. But it starts by pressuring the quarterback, and they have not been good at that at all. So that's why I've seen them taking 2 pass rushers basically in the top 16 picks.
Yeah, I like your argument. It's sound. I just don't think that it's going to happen because a guy like Omar Cooper Jr. is available. He played in every game that Indiana had. He was uber consistent. Every year that he's played college football, he had a drop percentage of 5.3 or less. Last year, it was 4.9 with just 3 drops on 75 targets. And I think that his reliability in both his hands and his durability make him a solid selection in the middle of this round, especially if a guy like Carnell Tate is off the board. Now, if Carnell Tate falls to 14, 13, I think the Jets should pull the trigger, trade up for Carnell Tate. No holes barred because he is the best receiver in the draft, in my opinion. But I just don't think that he's going to get out of the top 7 or 8.
No, I agree. I have Carnell Tate going pick 6. And again, Cooper Jr. he's one of my favorite wide receivers in the draft. On top of all those attributes that you mentioned with his durability and strong hands, he's also fast. He ran a 4.42 40-yard time. He's number 24 on the big board. He's gonna go first round. He's gonna be a great asset to whoever gets him. I'm just not sure if he'll be wearing a green jersey next year. That's my only take with it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Jets do. I've been having a lot of conversations with my Jet fan friends about what their dream draft would look like, and they certainly want a wide receiver to be selected. But obviously, as Jets fans know, the Jets organization doesn't like to make Jets fans' dreams come true. They like to make their nightmares come true. So we will see what the Jets organization does. But moving on to our next team chronologically in the draft in the AFC East, a team that also possesses 2 first-round picks. If you're watching the previous episodes and we're like, where are all the first-round picks? The AFC East is hoarding them, okay? The Dolphins have picks 11 and 13. So I'm going to pass it to Tyler for his take on pick 11 here for Miami.
So pick 11, I've got the Dolphins going corner. I've got them going LSU corner Mansour Delane. He's one of my favorite corners in the draft. I think early on in the top 10 is going to be a lot of edge rushers, maybe a tackle, couple wide receivers, and I think Delane is going to fall perfectly into the Dolphins' hands, especially as they need a lot of extra help in that secondary.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. And in fact, I think he's a top 10 talent. So him falling outside the top 10 would technically be the Dolphins getting a steal there. But with the way that my mocks have the draft falling, I have the Browns going with a playmaker and selecting tackle later. I have the Cardinals going defense, and I have the Chiefs going edge rusher and Reuben Bain. So those 3 teams, the only reason I mentioned those 3 teams is because those 3 teams could be teams that select tackle as well. And so if those 3 teams don't select tackle, Francis Mauigoa has a chance to fall to 11, and the Dolphins would be foolish not to pick up their franchise tackle at 11. He should not fall further than this. And so he's my selection.
I agree with that as well.
At 11 for them.
I agree with that. If Mauigoa falls to pick 11, yeah, the Dolphins need to go get him. I don't think he will, but yeah, that's definitely the pick if he's on the board. What about their later draft pick? I believe it is pick 30 that the Dolphins fall. Then we can kind of talk about the trends with those 2 picks.
And so here's my thing with pick 30 is the Dolphins go best tackle available, which happens to be best tackle in the draft, depending on who you ask. So I think corner is still a huge need. That's why I like your analysis on Mansour Delane. I think he is the best true corner that's healthy in the draft right now, because there's been a lot of buzz around Jermon McCoy and his knee injury potentially being degenerative, which is not good at all. That it would explain why he hasn't played football in 500 days. It would explain why there's not a ton of draft buzz around him, except for my team apparently wants to draft a degenerative needed player. Love the Lions. But I think that they're going to go with Avion Terrell at 30. I have Terrell connected with Kansas City, but I think that this corner class is so deep that I could see the Chiefs waiting till 40 or beyond to select their corner of the future, as Brett Veach has so often done in the past. Right. Watson was a 7th round selection. Other corners were selected later in the draft that became big contributors. So I don't think the Chiefs, with all of the needs they have, go corner at 29. I believe they have, Tyler.
Kansas City's got 29. Miami's got 30.
Right. So I think the Chiefs skip out on corner and the Dolphins nab a steal. So they're getting 2 steals here, 2 great value selections in my mock, at least, with Francis Mauigoa and Avion Terrell at the end of the first round. But I'm curious, you had them addressing corner early. So who do you have them taking late in this first round?
So we kind of flip-flopped who we have. Now, if Mauigoa is not available, you have them going wide receiver at 11. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's more than likely.
Okay. I've got those 2 switched. So I've got 11 going corner, like I said. Now at 30 is where I have them going wide receiver. There is a number of wide receivers that could fall. This is actually where I have Omar Cooper Jr. going, is pick 30. Wide receivers, because I know the comments like, wait a minute, you guys just talked about Cooper Jr. How is he available at 30 now? In my mock, here's the wide receivers that are taken before Cooper Jr., and then I'll kind of tell you why I think he'll fall that way. I've got Carnell Tate going at 6, Mekhi Lemon going at 8, Jordan Tyson at 13, and then I've got a lot of defensive players, couple other tackles, and more corners, leaving Omar Cooper Jr., the next wide receiver, off the board. Now, the reason that I think Cooper could fall that way, and by that I kind of mean why other wide receivers could could pass him on the draft is because I really like this wide receiver class. Mekhi Lemon had a 90.8 PFF grade last year. He's got great football IQ. Jordan Tyson being 6'2", 200. He's got lots of explosiveness. There's also Kenyon Sadiq, a tight end that could come off the board for a possible wide receiver team. And then, of course, Carnell Tate. So Cooper could fall. If he doesn't fall, you're also looking at possible Washington wide receiver Denzel Boston again, along with Casey Conception of Texas A&M. Am I saying that right?
It's close enough. It's a word.
I hope so. But that Texas A&M wide receiver. Those are two possible late round wide receivers if teams go a little bit wide receiver heavy. But ultimately, I've got corner, then wide receiver. You've got wide receiver, then corner. So
Gotcha. Yeah.
Heavy offense, heavy. So a balance is what the Dolphins seem to do. It just depends on what order they go in.
Yeah, they certainly have to support their new quarterback in Malik Willis, correct? I think, especially with how well he did, having a decent supporting cast in Miami, with a great running game and serviceable receivers and great depth. I think that's kind of what the Miami Dolphins will be looking to do in this draft, is shore up that offensive line. As they lost starting right tackle Larry Borum to Detroit this year, so they have a huge hole at tackle. So if Maui Noah is there, I think that no-brainer. But they also have a hole at corner as well. So luckily, Miami has two first-round picks.
Stay on that also. I don't mean to interrupt you, but one thing I do want to say on that also is if they do take tackle at 11, they're not going to do another offensive player at 30.
Really?
I think one of those picks is going to be a defensive player, and one of those picks is going to be an offensive player. If they decide that first round they're going to go offensive with wide receiver, then the second round or third round is maybe where they go get those later tackles. But if they go tackle early, then you can expect a defensive player. And there's a lot of defensive players that could also fall to 30 as well. You mentioned Avion Terrell recently. He's another one that could go if Kansas City doesn't go with him at 29.
Yeah, and I agree with you that they're not going to go double offense because of their new head coach, right? Jeff Hafley, former defensive coordinator, I don't think he would leave the first round, an objectively very talented defensively first round, without one of those talented defensive players, especially with a cornerback room that is led by Juju Brents out of Kansas State, Emaw. I mean, I love Juju Brents. He should not be your best corner per PFF. So
yeah,
I think that taking a look at defense, specifically secondary, would be a great option. But moving on in the AFC East, we've got Patrick Mahomes' favorite AFC team to play in the playoffs. That is the Buffalo Bills, who sit at pick 26. And man, what a tough season for them, right? What a sad way to lose to the Denver Broncos, who then went on to lose because they lost their quarterback in the same game. Feels like the biggest missed opportunity of Josh Allen's career.
Yeah, this was definitely Allen's way to do it. But what weirdly enough seems to always be the Bills' kryptonite outside of 5 turnovers by Josh Allen seems to be defense. And this is where I think they're going to go. Some mocks have them going wide receiver to get the weapons of them. I've got them going Peter Woods out of Clemson. The signing of Von Miller didn't go as planned. The signing of Bosa didn't go as planned. They are trying to find their coveted pass rusher. And an interior defensive line like Peter Woods seems to be a very good fit for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, and I think that he would be great value for Buffalo as well. I actually have them going the same position. I saw the mocks that gave them a wide receiver. I think a lot of that is due to the way the admin has talked down on one of their former highly drafted wide receivers in Keon Coleman. I don't think he's quite gotten a fair shake to really develop as an NFL player. And I don't think that he's been that bad. Don't get me wrong.
No.
He has not lived up to the draft billing that everyone thought he would, but I don't think that, it's justifiable to draft a first-round receiver in this spot when you have him and Khalil Shakir, right? Like, it's not an immediate need. Certainly, if somebody falls to you, go make that choice. But I have them going Caden McDonald out of Ohio State, a defensive interior player. And I think that he is one of the more talented players in this year's draft as far as defensive linemen go. He's just kind of falling because of the positional value of interior defensive linemen. But we both kind of agree that they're going to bolster their D-line, try to stop the run, and, try to control that line of scrimmage and maybe give Josh Allen a few more possessions per game so that he can turn it over in the playoffs some more.
I think McDonald would be a great addition to the Buffalo Bills. He, I think, is the clear-cut number one interior defensive lineman of this draft. Caden McDonald had an 86.6 PFF grade. He's 6'3", 326 pounds. He is a great defensive lineman. After that, I think there's a big gap in between the next three, and I think the next three are debatably Caleb Banks, Peter Woods, and then Christian Miller. So I do see McDonald falling into the middle draft, but if he does fall all the way to the mid-20s, he'd be perfect for Buffalo. But I do worry about his availability being there.
True, and he was someone that I actually had mocked in the second round earlier in draft season. I am amending that because after doing more research, there's no way this guy stays on the board past 30. And honestly, this is a reach, him getting this far, especially with, you mentioned his PFF grade. I'm going to mention another grade that he's been given, a 92 run defense grade, which is first of all defensive interior players in college football. And so he wouldn't necessarily fit the bill as the interior pass rusher, but guess what? The Bills have Ed Oliver, who does that really well already. So they kind of need that guy that is able to hold the middle alongside Ed Oliver. And if one of those guys has to be one-on-one, they have enough pass rush juice to win. It's just you can't let them double Oliver or McDonald. And that would be the objective. Ed Oliver, also a first-round selection. So back in the day, right, by the Bills. So definitely an interesting choice for the Bills because you have to wonder if the offense was just good enough last year, and if you don't throw the game away with some weird fumbles at the end of the second half, if you go on to the AFC Championship against an objectively weak New England Patriots team. But let's see it'll be interesting to see what the Bills do on draft night.
And I do want to see the Bills succeed. I do feel bad for Josh Allen. The person I feel bad for the most is Sean McDermott, because of all of the years that the Bills have lost in tragic fashion, this was the year that it was the least McDermott's fault. The 13-second game in 2021, that was the most McDermott's fault. And then this year is the least McDermott's fault. And so for him to get fired, and then, yeah, you kind of mentioned it too. They really used Keon Coleman as like a scapegoat for why Sean McDermott got fired. And I thought that's nuts.
I thought that was insane, not only to do to an active player on your roster, but to use as a scapegoat at all on a coach that really was one of the best coaches in Buffalo Bills history. And he was just unceremoniously let go. So pretty insane season for Buffalo. It's going to be hard to follow it up in terms of pure chaos. And they still scored 30 points against the best defense in football, or at least in the AFC, in Denver. So you have to wonder, are the offensive weapons there? Like, is James Cook and Josh Allen and their tandem, is that enough?
We'll find out this year. But one team that does not feel bad for the Buffalo Bills in any way, shape, or form is the AFC champion New England Patriots, who draft about 5 spots later at pick 31.
Yeah, well, they have their own problems to worry about with their head coach going to an adults-only resort with an NFL insider. But we don't have to get into that on draft coverage day. So who do you have New England going here at pick 31?
The person that I have them going at pick 31, I'll jump straight into it because I can't think of a pun to go with Mike Vrabel's situation at the moment. So I'll just jump straight into it. I've got them going Blake Miller, the tackle out of Clemson. I think Drake May was pressured so much in the Super Bowl. That is something that they absolutely lacked. The way to win the Super Bowl is by having a protected quarterback. And I think Blake Miller is a very good fit for the New England Patriots out of Clemson. He's got a 78 PFF grade. He's 6'3", 315. But the biggest thing is that he is consistent and strong in pass protection. That's something that the Patriots lacked in the Super Bowl, and that's something that Blake Miller specifically will bring to the table.
Yeah, I agree with your analysis and everything that you just said, but we disagree on the player. I think the tackle is the right move for New England, especially in such a deep tackle class, right? Blake Miller is like OT 6 or 7, depending on who you ask, right? And I think that he, in a normal draft class, would be OT 3 or 4. So that's how deep this tackle class is. You're getting a really quality starter late in the first round potentially, but unfortunately, I think Blake Miller will be gone by this point. He's rising up my board and other people's boards. So I have the New England Patriots selecting Max. I'm going to give it a shot here. Ihe Chador. Ihenachor. The ASU Sun Devils tackle who has only allowed 2 sacks in his entire career at Arizona State and recorded a 78 pass block grade last season. So another pass block specialist tackle. He sits at 6'6", 330, and he's 22 years old. I think he's the kind of guy that you can slot in and really trust him to protect the quarterback day one and maybe develop those run game traits later in his career, which is something the New England Patriots can afford to do at 30. They already have a really good team, but like you said, they have to prioritize the health and protection of Drake May.
I like that pick. He's definitely surging up the board. He started off on PFF's big board at number 30, and now he's going up a little bit. Blake Miller started off at 25 and is also continuing to rise. Another name I want to bring up is Caden Proctor. Do you think he has any shot at being available for the Patriots? And if so, would you go with him?
If he's there, absolutely. I think he has a very high ceiling. And as a team picking in the late 30s, I think that you have to go with the players with a high ceiling, because if they develop the way that they could develop, you're getting a very premium player at a very low cost, especially comparing if you've like drafted a premium quote unquote player in the top 5, right? Their salaries differ. So I personally have Caden Proctor mocked to the Cleveland Browns at 24. But if he somehow falls, I don't think the New England Patriots can realistically pass on him, right?
Mm-hmm. I agree. So Proctor's probably going to be gone. So it really does become the ASU tackle or
Blake Miller.
Or Blake Miller, the Clemson tackle. Is there a possibility of them going a different position though outside of tackle?
I mean, it's possible, but like think about the way tackle is their biggest need. I could see them potentially making a move at a wide receiver because they lost Stephon Diggs, right? I don't think he's with. I'm not sure he's with the team anymore.
Well, and at the very least, even if he is, there's questions about his availability for next year. The reason that I ask, though, is NFL.com has them going Christian Miller, the defensive line from Georgia, and then Mel Kiper has them going Cassius Howell, the edge from Texas A&M. So other mocks don't even have them going offense.
Yeah, and I think that's possible, especially because their edges, while not bad, left a lot to be desired, right? With Howard Landry and Anafri Jennings. So it's possible, depending on who falls. I think that if you're New England, you kind of have to look at a BPA approach a little bit.
I'm referring to best player available.
That's correct. Because, there's a lot of ways that the top 29 or 30 picks could fall. And I think that the secondary is looking good with Christian Gonzalez, Kevin Byard, and Carlton Davis and Marcus Jones. Like, I think they're set there. But I think the Eagles have proven you can never have enough defensive line talent. So if there's a guy that's a can't-miss prospect on Mike Vrabel's board, then maybe he moves up and interlocks his hands with him at a resort and trade and makes the selection of an edge rusher. But I think that tackle is overwhelmingly more likely than that.
And again, I agree with you. Just to provide the Patriots fans a little bit of talking points as well, a little bit of stuff to know if their team doesn't go with a tackle. But kind of shifting gears now a little bit, we now have a team that needs quite literally everything, so much so that they landed on the third pick. We're going to shift to the NFC side now, and we're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals at the third pick in the draft. Who is going to the second highest stadium in elevation, Zach?
That's a good stat. I like that, Tyler. Man, they could use a lot of players here, right? But I think the player that makes the most sense is David Bailey out of Texas Tech, because Arvell Reese, as we've both mocked, is going to the Jets at 2. So if that happens, and we do have a fairly good track record of getting the first 5 to 10 picks correct. So if Tyler and I both agree on something, we've said this before, there's a good chance that it actually happens. So I'm going with David Bailey here because the edge rushers could leave a lot to be desired, and you can't pass up a guy like David Bailey, although some mocks are having them do just that.
I go back and forth between David Bailey's 93 PFF grade and Sony Styles, the extremely strong 6'5", 243-pound linebacker. I think both are great additions. It really is a coin flip for me. Sony Styles and David Bailey. I think with positional value, a linebacker is going to be more valuable than an edge, and that's why my mock lands on Sony Styles. But I do love David Bailey. I think he's going top 5 either way.
So I may ask you for clarification on what you mean by that, because middle linebacker or off-ball linebacker is objectively less valuable than an edge. Edge rushers are the second highest paid position in the NFL. And if you draft a blue chip edge rusher in the first round, you're getting him on a rookie contract when a player of that caliber would be likely getting $45 to $50 million per year. So that's what they mean by positional value. I'm going to launch into a little bit of an explanation because I was doing a lot of research on this earlier. The Lions drafted a first-team All-Pro in Jack Campbell. His salary as a first-round pick is $14 million. This puts him as the 7th highest paid off-ball linebacker. So in terms of positional value, drafting him in the first round means that you're essentially already paying a top 5 player at his position. That's not the objective of a rookie contract. If you were to draft David Bailey, however, he would be in the 40s or 30s in terms of top paid edge rushers. That is positional value because David Bailey is a hell of a lot better than the other 29 guys ahead of him. He has the potential to be a top 8 to 10 player on draft night at his position, and you are getting him and you are paying him 20 slots lower than that. So that's what they mean by positional value, because the first round picks are kind of set. Their salaries at least are kind of set. So if you select a running back or you select a linebacker, like for example, take running back. A lot of people are talking about Jeremiah Love. He's going to get around $15 million. The Chiefs are paying a second contract to Kenneth Walker at around $17 million. So you're not even getting a discount if you select an off-ball linebacker or running back in the first round. You are actively paying somebody a top 10 salary if you make that choice. So they have to be good enough to justify it. And I think that Sonny Styles is good enough to justify it. But if you're the Cardinals, I think that you can't. You have so many needs, and edge rusher is one of the more cornerstone important players on your defense. And I get shades of Isaiah Simmons, who was an uber athletic off-ball linebacker that they drafted, and he ended up failing. So I think David Bailey has to be the positional value selection at 3.
So, okay, I guess maybe positional value with Styles being middle linebacker. I guess in terms of financial implications, I was using the wrong terminology there. But I'm talking more about what they're going to get out of him. I think Sonny Styles can be very versatile. My notes say that he's an attacking linebacker, so this is going to be really good for the run stop. And I think on certain blitz packages, you could also get him going in for pass rush as well. So you could get him all over that middle part of the defensive backfield. While with an edge rusher, you're of course going to get a phenomenal pass rusher. But I think since there's so many holes in that Arizona Cardinals defense, going middle linebacker is going to be a good stepping stone to kind of be that captain of the defensive front.
Yeah, and there's no question that the value to a defense that a green dot linebacker brings. And so maybe that's what you were referring to by value.
Yes.
Is his impact and his ability to kind of control traffic on the defensive side. But in terms of positional and monetary value, Sonny Styles is one of the worst picks you can make at 3. But in terms of
I was not going with the financial contract definition of positional value. I was meaning more of what that player is going to bring to the defense.
Right. But in terms of talent, it's really him or Downs, Caleb Downs from Ohio State, both Ohio State defenders, as the top talent-wise value on defense. I like you are getting best prospect at this position in X amount of years if you select him. And I do think that that's worth noting. However, I'm giving it a less than 10% chance that the Cardinals take a swing on an off-ball linebacker top 3. I cannot, for the life of me, remember the last time an off-ball linebacker went top 3, and I don't think that trend will buck because of the statistics around the salaries of these players.
So before we go to our next team, then, where do you have Sonny Styles falling?
5.
I'm at 5 to
the Giants.
The Giants. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I respect that. And then so going into our second team, the next NFC West team to pick is at 13 with the Los Angeles Rams. I've got them personally going wide receiver. I mentioned this name in passing earlier. I've got them going Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. I think he is explosive. He's versatile. He's 6'2" and only 200. He's tall. He's light. He's got an over 80 PFF grade. I think he'll fit right in, especially as the Rams are kind of in limbo as to what's going on with their best wide receiver, Puka Nacua, given his off-the-field issues. I think Jordan Tyson will be a great person to bring in to either complement Puka, or he'll probably be back, but replace him if they need to.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting that Devontae Adams and Jordan Tyson compare so closely in terms of like height, weight, speed. And obviously he was super successful with the Rams last year. I'm talking Adams with his double-digit touchdowns and his red zone success. And it kind of reminds me of Jordan Tyson, right? In his ability to make these acrobatic catches, be that explosive target. And I think that Adams won't be – obviously, Adams came into the league in 2014, so I don't think that he has much tread left on the tires. So replacing that production should be a priority for the Rams. And Tyson does that really, really well. And so I agree with you, wide receiver, and I agree with you that Jordan Tyson goes because I have Mekhi Lemon and Carnell Tate going before this selection. So I think that Tyson is the next guy off the board. I have him going here. That's why I ended up having Omar Cooper go to the Jets because I have those 3 wide receivers going early. However, The injury concerns are interesting because you're kind of in a win now mode with Matthew Stafford in potentially his final year as a Ram, and their Super Bowl window essentially dependent on Matthew Stafford's career being still active. So I think that you could see a tackle here instead. And I have Monroe Freeling going here. Because I have Francis Mauigoa going to the Miami Dolphins, and then I have Monroe Freeling going 2 picks later, because I think he's really, really talented, has a high ceiling, and would be someone that McVay would pounce on.
If they were to go tackle, I'm looking at my mock draft now. Who would I have off of the board? My latest mock, weirdly enough, doesn't have a lot of high tackles. So I think Francis Mauigoa is, the only tackle that I've got going earlier than pick 16. So I think Freeling could be very good.
And this also lines up.
I don't have a whole lot of notes. I think there's a couple other tackles too that they could possibly go, but I don't hate that pick in protecting Stafford while they've got him for these last few years.
Yeah, and they kind of get their tackle of the future. And I also have Spencer Fano going a few picks later to Detroit. And Spencer Fano is kind of that other tweener tackle that's like, he could be the first tackle off the board. He could be the 4th tackle off the board. We don't really know where the tackles rank on every team's board. And I think it's honestly different depending on the scheme. As we've talked about, some tackles are better in gap schemes, whereas some tackles are better in power or zone schemes. So I think that Freeling has a ceiling to be good at all of them. And that's why the Rams are going to take him, because he will be a tackle of the future, probably the next 5 years if they do make that selection. But I agree with your analysis about Jordan Tyson, and I think that he would be a great replacement to the production of Devontae Adams when he eventually does retire, and I think that will be soon.
I do like Spencer Fano over Monroe Freeling, but their schemes are a little bit differently. It just depends on how the Rams would want to evaluate those and kind of see if they want to start him now or have them be depth this year and then go on. Is there anything else to cover or discuss with the Rams before we go on to our next one?
I don't have any other notes regarding the Rams. I just know that when talking about Fano, there's actually a lot of talk about him kicking inside to guard because of his shorter arms, right? And we talked about that a little bit when we were breaking down the Lions pick at 17. They tend to overlook the short arms as they have done with Penei Sewell. And so that's why I think that's where he would go and then play pure tackle. Whereas there is no concern on arm length with 6'7", 315, 21-year-old Monroe Freeling. Like, you cannot build a better young, high upside tackle prospect in a lab if you tried. His pass blocking grade is in the top 10 for all tackles in college football, and his run blocking grade leaves a little bit to be desired. That's why I think he's kind of a high ceiling, because the pass blocking comes so naturally. I think you can teach him to be a run blocker, especially in a McVay scheme that uses the 13 personnel so much. I don't know if you have looked into this very much, Tyler, but 13 personnel is obviously 3 tight ends on the field, and they run that all the time. And so you don't necessarily need your tackle to be a rolling, run-blocking machine like Penei Sewell, for example, if you have 3 tight ends on the field, road-rolling the linebackers anyway. So I think Monroe Freeling is a beautiful, perfect scheme fit, and he will benefit from having more beef on the field and just naturally get better because of his size and athleticism at the tackle position. So that's why I have him mocked there. But those are my only notes. Sorry, you said if there's any more notes. I just love talking about Monroe Freeling. I think he's so cool.
You're good. You're good. I'm excited to see where he's gonna fall. He just feels like a lion, honestly.
Oh, that would make
That's
me
kind
happy.
of where we've mocked him a little bit. But
I have seen it numerous times.
Speaking of the Lions, we are going to talk about your favorite team now, and that is the San Francisco 49ers. Sorry, I had to.
Do we have to? San Francisco picks at 27, and I have a feeling that we may agree here on who they select. So I have them going.
Who you got?
Offensive tackle Caleb Lomu, another Utah Ute. Is that not who you have?
I have offensive tackle. I've got Caden Proctor.
Okay, so this is where you have Proctor falling. You have him falling
Yes.
one pick past Buffalo to
Yes.
San Francisco. Okay.
And then Lomu.
You may not even have a first-round grade on Lomu.
I'm not sure if I do have Lomu in the first round on my latest mock. Now, that being said, the Lomu is definitely a person that is capable of getting into the first round. If he's not in the first round, then he's going to go early second round to those teams that passed on a tackle in the early first round. But, and frankly, I think that's how Caden Proctor is too. The tackle out of Alabama. It just kind of depends on who the tackles that you have available are and who is going to value a tackle over, say, a wide receiver or a defensive need. But
yeah,
you can talk about Lomu and then I can talk about Proctor.
For sure, yeah. Let's break it down because we haven't really mentioned Lomu all that much. We've talked a little bit about Proctor, and I do want to hear your analysis. But Lomu is a guy that kind of slipped into the first round grades right at the very end, kind of like Ihenador, Maxi Henador. Caleb Lomu played 823 snaps at offensive tackle last year and allowed just 8 pressures and no sacks. He's got a great pass blocking grade. And when I look at the San Francisco 49ers, I don't see a ground and pound running team. I see a team that relies on keeping their quarterback upright and healthy. When they've kept Brock Purdy healthy, they go to the NFC Championship. It's almost guaranteed. And I don't think that's a testament to Brock Purdy. I think that's a testament to the rest of the team. But you have to keep your signal caller healthy, and Brock Purdy has certainly slid into that Kyle Shanahan distributor quarterback role that Jimmy Garoppolo did so well many years ago. So well, in fact, that Tyler once ranked him in his top 12 quarterbacks in the NFL. That's how good Jimmy Garoppolo did in that role. And I think that Brock Purdy has slid into that role.
1 point a few years ago, not like currently.
Yes, it was wrong. It was probably 2 years ago. 3 years ago, maybe. But Caleb Lomu with a top 30 pass blocking grade. He's also 6'6", 308, and 21 years old. So kind of in that same vein as Monroe Freeling, although I don't think he's viewed as having a high ceiling, as high a ceiling as Freeling, obviously, because he's in the late first round. But I think he's great for a team like San Francisco, who doesn't have much time left with Trent Williams and could really use a franchise first-round tackle that they can lock down for 5 years on a relatively cheap deal.
You mentioned Trent Williams, and that's a big part of my analysis for Caden Proctor. So for context on Trent Williams, he's 37 years old, he's 6'5", he's 320 pounds, and he is the core of protecting whatever quarterback that they have that I overhype. Caleb Lomu, he's 6'6", 308, but Caden Proctor is 6'7", 366. He reminds me a lot of Trent Williams. He is massive. He's powerful. He's got great coordination. PFF does point out that he lacks foot speed and arm length. But when you're 6'7", 366 with good build and coordination, I don't really care too much about how big your arms are within reason. And that's who I see being the heir to Trent Williams is Caden Proctor, especially with that size matching up to be a very similar build to Trent Williams.
Yeah, I think that no matter which team selects Caden Proctor, they're going to have to reduce that playing weight because 366 is not at all good enough to justify a first-round tackle. Like, it's not at all good enough to block some of the athletic edge rushers like Micah Parsons, for example, that you'll see in the NFL. So they're going to have to drop that playing weight to help maybe improve that foot speed. But I disagree a little bit on your comparison of Proctor to Williams because Trent Williams was an unbelievable athlete. I want you to guess what Trent Williams' 40-yard dash time was as a 6'5", 315 tackle.
Trent Williams is an absolute freak of nature. I don't even know what to guess for an athletic
An average
tackle,
is
to be
around 5
honest.
seconds. So that's around
So
average.
5 seconds. So based on that, I would guess like 4.8.
Yeah, it's in the 4.8 range. He also had 34-inch arms, which isn't like freakishly long, but it's long enough. And he also had a 35-inch vertical. Trent Williams did, which is just stupid. I think that Caden Proctor has rare athleticism. Do not get me wrong. People that big should not move that way. I've said that about Caden Proctor throughout this process. However, I think that he is a developmental, high-ceiling player, and where he's at right now is very far from his ceiling. Whereas some players in this draft, like Blake Miller, I think has a lower ceiling, but he's closer to that ceiling already. So it's a matter of, can you afford to wait for Caden Proctor to climb the rungs of the ladder towards the ceiling? And I think that a team like San Francisco cannot, whereas a team like Cleveland, who I have selecting Caden Proctor, can.
See, and I actually disagree with that last part. I think a team like San Francisco can because they still have Trent Williams. I think if I'm San Francisco, I would bring in Caden Proctor to be the heir to Trent Williams, build him up, spend this year to lower that weight. I think it's a lot easier to cut weight than gain weight. So I would much rather have the 366 over a 308 because you can cut that very easily, turn some of that fat to muscle as if he's not muscular already. And then when Trent Williams retires in a year or two, now it's Proctor's time to just step right in.
Yeah, and a lot of people agree with you because of the fact that they have San Francisco going tackle, right? Because I don't think that this tackle is going to replace Colton McKivitz, who's on the right side, who's only 29 years old and posted a 84 offensive grade according to PFF. So I think that he's safe in his position. It's really just how can we prepare for the departure of our 38-year-old offensive tackle? And I think if Proctor's there, it wouldn't be a bad choice. But I think that there's going to be a lot more work involved to getting Proctor to his ceiling. And maybe mentoring under Trent Williams will lessen that work and it will help him out even more. But I just don't even think he'll be there. I think that his ceiling is too high, and a team like Cleveland's going to capitalize on that, and that's why they go Lomu. But I don't necessarily disagree with your analysis.
If Proctor's not available, I do think Lomu would be a very good pick still.
Yeah, consolation prize, I think. But we do have one final team remaining. This is the last team of our draft coverage before we get into the ref call of the week for today and our mock draft next week. So hopefully this will be enough to tide you over. But we do have the Super Bowl champions, saving the best for last. From Seattle, pick 32. The Seahawks are on the clock at the end of the first round. Who do you have them taking?
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about Clemson, but I'm mentioning Clemson a lot, and I'm not going to stop. I've got TJ Parker, the edge from that school.
We agree.
To the defender. Do we agree on that?
We agree.
All right. Credits. Show's over.
Roll credits. It's over. 53 minutes and 30 seconds. That's DPI. We'll see you next week. But yeah, go ahead with your analysis. I did not mean to interrupt you. I just cannot believe that we agree on pick 32 of all picks.
No, literally. So the edge out of Clemson, TJ Parker, he's got an 80.6 PFF grade. He's a very well-rounded athlete. He's projected to be a rotational player. He's someone that I think a lot of late-round picks could get, especially since he is projected to be a rotational player. But he's going to be a guy that's going to eventually develop into a very good starter and a very good pass rusher.
Yeah, I think that not only is he good now, he has the potential to be really good later. And Mike McDonald, the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, runs a very, very unique and creative pass rushing scheme where he does a lot of four-man rushes. And I think that TJ Parker is well-rounded, good size at 6'3", 260. He's only 21 years old. Like, there's a lot of upside for a guy that's projected to go late in the first round, correct? So I have no issues with the Super Bowl champions selecting a guy like TJ Parker and trying to run it back. A lot of people did think that it's possible they draft the RB2 in the class to replace Kenneth Walker. What are your thoughts on the merit of that claim or that argument?
Remind me the name of who they have RB2. Anything running back, I'm just seeing as Jeremiah Love. Who are you referring to? I'm sorry.
I'm referring to his running mate in Notre Dame, and that's Jadarian Price.
See, I don't even have a whole lot of notes about Price, which is why I could not find him. That makes a lot more sense. I don't think they're going to go get Price at pick 32. I don't think that the running back position is that valuable anymore, so I can see Price being available in the second round for them to go get him. Or if they have a lot of picks, maybe trade up to get him in a mid-second round. But I don't think they need to go get him in the first round.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with you for the most part. I don't think that they would draft. I think there's going to be a lot more high value players and a lot actually better players, because a lot of the times when you see a running back drafted in the first round, like, he is objectively better than some of the other players around him, but the reason he fell is because of the fact that he's a running back. I hearken back to Jahmyr Gibbs, who was picked at 12 and now has more touchdowns in his first 4 seasons than Barry Sanders, who went top 3, right? So I think a lot of people would have selected Jahmyr Gibbs higher than that had they known the talent was there. But he fell outside the top 10 because he's a running back. Jadarian Price doesn't even fall into that category. I don't even think he's good enough to be selected in the first round, so therefore he should fall further than that. And I think that is what will happen. I was just wanting to bring up kind of a devil's advocate argument for replacing a big hole on their roster, which is running back, as Kenneth Walker played a huge role. Obviously, he was a Super Bowl MVP for the Seahawks.
And the other reason I don't even have notes on Price also is that my notes included the PFF's Big Board's top 40. He is not in the top 40. So I think it would be a massive reach to select him in the first round.
Gotcha.
Maybe trade back from 32 to pick 40 if someone wants to trade back in, and then get him there if you really want him. But I think it'd be foolish to pick him at 32.
I agree. CBS Sports has him as the RB2, but they also have him as the 57th ranked player. So is he the second best running back on the board? Absolutely. Is he worth drafting in the first round? Absolutely not. So
that's wild.
I agree.
Because RB1's going to be a top 5 pick, or at the very least a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I think he could go as early as 4 to Tennessee. And then I don't think he makes it out of the top 10, truly. Like, I think if he gets to 7, the Commanders are Gib.
100%.
But we did have a ref call of the week. We actually kind of had 2 ref calls of the week. You're spoiled.
Ref call.
A bonus ref call. That's DPI audience, are spoiled rotten. But I'm sure once I don't even have to play the clip, you know exactly what is about to happen here in the snow in the AFC Championship game. But I'm still going to pass it to Tyler to give us the situation, because I just like to hear it. Go ahead, Tyler.
You like to hear it. So we are inside the 2-minute warning of a divisional playoff game between the New England Patriots and Oakland Raiders. You already know this if you've seen this. Tom Brady is about to fumble the ball. The Oakland Raiders are going to pick it up, solidifying their win over the Patriots. There's the fumble. There's the recovery. Everyone in Oakland is celebrating with jubilee. But wait a minute. That arm might have been moving forward. And as everyone knows, they declare it an incomplete pass. marking the infamous tuck rule game. The Patriots, of course, go on to kick a game-tying field goal right there, but they eventually go on to win the game.
Yeah, and
But it begs the
then
question is, what is a tuck rule?
what is a tuck rule? And I have the verbiage here, unless you'd like to read it out. But I like to read out the verbiage of the rules. But
Yeah, I do have it. Go ahead and you can read that out, though.
according to the NFL rulebook from 1993 onward, NFL Rule 3, Section 22, Article 2 stated when an offensive player is holding the ball to pass it forward, any intentional forward movement of the arm, even if the player loses possession of the ball as he's attempting to tuck it back towards his body, is a forward pass, starts a forward pass. So any intentional forward movement of the ball starts a forward pass, even if he's tucking it. So that's the rule. The rule also stipulates that also if the player has tucked the ball into his body and loses possession, it is a fumble. So since Tom Brady did not tuck the ball fully and was still moving it forward, even though he was tucking it, the NFL rulebook stipulated that it was an incomplete pass. Is that correct analysis of that rule?
Yes, and this is actually a credit to Bill Belichick because prior to this play, no one really knew of that. It was a very nuanced thing. It's like, okay, it very rarely happens. Not a lot of people knew about it, or the fans at least did not know about it. Bill Belichick called it out, they reviewed it, and they got it right. They, as in the Patriots, they got it right. And based on the wording of this rule at the time, it is the correct call. It's weirdly debated in NFL history rule books, but this is the correct call on the rule. But that's not really why we're talking about it, because this call is important in understanding the rule book. It's important because after this play, after this call, everyone knew the tuck rule, and we started seeing it a lot more, including in our bonus ref call, another playoff game about a decade later. We have the Kansas City Chiefs with infamous quarterback Matt Castle. Go ahead and play that clip because this one's less famous.
Yep.
We
Matt
see
Castle
the Ravens.
Looked like he was
the
dropping
Ravens
back
beating
to
up
throw
on the
there.
Chiefs.
Yeah, bad. But clearly arm moving forward, and then he kind of tucks it back. Modern NFL would stipulate that that's probably a fumble, but tuck rule says that this is an incomplete pass. And the Chiefs would actually retain possession of this ball. Here's is this Todd Haley arguing that is in fact tuck rule? Wow, throw back to Todd Haley.
Todd Haley, the current UFL offensive coordinator.
Yeah, he's in a real prestigious position. But yeah, I think a lot of NFL fans, including me, before we covered this rule, thought the tuck rule was eliminated the season after Tom Brady's infamous usage of the tuck rule, but it persisted all the way to 2013, where it was finally eliminated from the NFL rulebook. And that's why we wanted to show you that lesser known, ultimately unconsequential application of the tuck rule in that 2010 AFC wildcard game between the Chiefs and the Ravens. And also, the Chiefs were beneficiary of ref voodoo magic all the way back in 2010. So you Chiefs haters, eat your heart out.
And the other thing about it too is that the reason we showed this Chiefs play too is this was almost the death of the tuck rule, because when you watch that video, Matt Castle wasn't even being hit. Matt Castle just lost the ball. That is absolutely a fumble every day of the week, and it's actually a fumble in today's wordage now that the tuck rule has been repealed. But it was after that game that Mike oh man, I always butcher his last name. What's his last name, Zach?
Mike Pereira.
Mike Pereira, the former NFL vice president for officiating, he stated that he was no longer in support of the tuck rule after that game. Because when you watch something like that, you're like, what do you mean that is an incomplete pass? That's a fumble. He was not even being hit when he lost it. And they listened. They listened to Mike Pereira. They repealed it just a few years later, and now it is this infamous story of an asterisk next to one of Brady's many rings.
Right, and not only was it eliminated from the rule book, it was a 29-1 vote in favor of eliminating the tuck rule. If you are curious, the one team to vote against that rule was, of course,
It's gonna be the Patriots, right?
the Pittsburgh Steelers. Of course, yes, everyone.
Why is it the Steelers?
The Pittsburgh Steelers took a 12 angry man, last man standing approach. They wanted the tuck rule to stay, dang it. The New England Patriots and Washington Redskins at the time abstained from the vote. They did not vote on this. That's why the 29-1 adds up to 30, because two teams decided that they were going to stay out of this. But Pittsburgh was like, we are going to make sure our voice is heard. Patriots owner Robert Kraft was also quoted as saying, "I love the tuck rule and forever will. And I know longtime Raiders owner Al Davis, may he rest in peace, is probably smiling now that it's eliminated."
It's interesting that the Redskins also abstained from voting. And do you know why that is?
Why would that be?
Because in 2005 versus the Denver Broncos quarterback at the time, Jake Plummer, lost the football while in the Broncos' own end zone, giving the Washington Redskins a safety. However, due to the tuck rule, it was taken off the board. So the Redskins were actually punished for the tuck rule. And so there is the possibility that they knew that it should be repealed, but they weren't going to vote for it because it did hurt them.
Interesting. So we have a team that benefited from the tuck rule and a team that was hurt by the tuck rule, both abstaining from the vote due to, I guess, conflict of interest. Evidently, the Chiefs and Ravens,
or pettiness of some sort.
The Chiefs and Ravens didn't give a crap. They both voted to eliminate it, even though the Ravens just 3 years ago were hurt by said rule. They said, well, I guess even though the Chiefs were helped by said rule, they said, get it the heck out of the game. I don't want to see it ever again.
Yeah, and I mean the tuck rule in that game, the Chiefs-Ravens game didn't matter. It was 23-7 at the time of that happening. I think the final score might have been 31-7. The Ravens go on to lose the next round to the Steelers. So it's a very inconsequential call. The consequential call is, of course, the 2001 play against the Raiders.
Sure.
But it's rules and calls that changed the rule book.
Yep, we have to cover them all this offseason because we're going to have to come up with something new next offseason. So that was our coverage of one of the more famous rules of the game, not necessarily named after a player, but the tuck rule itself had such an infamous play. The rule in its name was in infamy among NFL fans forever, even though it has not been in the rule book for over a decade. But that's about all we have for you guys. Make sure that you are subscribed and tuned in to the live stream next week. You don't want to miss it. Last year, we got the first 10 players off the board in the correct order. I have to say that in that way because there were some weird trades. But you may get some insider information on where some players are going. So we hope to see you there. But until that time, thank you all for watching.
Appreciate you guys.